Welcome back to another episode of Local Search Tuesdays. This week I'm sharing some awesome info about local SEO because I'm sharing my presentation from the Driving Sales Executive Summit in Las Vegas. You know the drill. It's a conference presentation episode, which means it's going to be a longer video this week. So let's get right to it. Hey, this is Marty McFly's Guide to the Future of Automotive SEO. You're watching this on my Local Search Tuesdays video series, so I don't have to mention that you should watch it, and you already know who I am, most likely, but for those of you that don't, I'm the Vice President of Search at SearchLab, and I speak at a ton of conferences every year, and unfortunately, sometimes I see those presenters who are not that great. They stand behind the podium with their back to the crowd, reading their own slides. And typically the background of the slides is just plain white, and it's Arial font, and it's black, and it's just each slide packed with bullet points, and they just read the bullet points, and that's not very fun to watch. So I believe that bullet points kill kittens, and this presentation will be entirely kitten safe. And you saw the Back to the Future reference there at the beginning. I'm a massive film nerd. I've got a full sleeve of movie portrait tattoos. My entire right leg is Goonies tattoos. And I'm about a third of the way done sleeving up my left arm with more movie tattoos. So I always love to share my love of movies when I do a presentation at a conference. So today's theme is sci-fi movies. We've got 101 sci-fi movie references, and typically I'm going to go back and include at least one movie for every year in the last 50 years. But today we're going back 53 years, so I can include every Planet of the Apes movie. There is attribution to the side, so if it's a movie you've not seen before and it looks interesting, you'll have some cool stuff to go watch later. So let's kick this off. Are you here because you need a hand with figuring out how to get better visibility in local searches? Are you spending too much time looking up at other competitors that rank higher in search results? Local search is a really tough puzzle to crack, and unfortunately, a lot of people try to just coast by and float along with no effort. But if you're not putting in the effort, you're basically going to blend into the background, and if that happens, you're virtually invisible to potential customers. Now, I know it's a confusing thing, but I don't want you to lose your head when you're thinking about SEO. I'm here today to help you dig through the giant pile of crap that's online and show you exactly what matters to achieve better visibility. In fact, it's almost going to be like I'm showing you the code behind Google's matrix. So let's face it, website traffic has been super weird for car dealers for the last year and a half, and for everybody really. But if we graph out what traffic looked like since the beginning of 2020, or really looking back to 2019, we'd see it like this. COVID hits, and then we start recovering from the COVID lockdown, and then now we've got chip shortage and shipping shortage, and things are just all over the place. So now, more than ever, you need SEO for your dealership. And unfortunately, a lot of dealers are going to use the OEM-approved providers to handle their SEO, but that system is not in your dealership's best interest. And here's why. When you get into that program, you're locked into whatever you're offering at the point of entering the program. So you're offering outdated strategies to the dealers. And if you're a dealer, do you really want somebody doing your SEO that's not using current tactics and strategies? And they're also locked into the specific packages that they have to offer, which means they give the same services to dealers, regardless of that dealer's actual location or actual needs. And then consultants are typically ridiculously overloaded. I know for a fact that several of the OEM approved providers have consultants that handle anywhere from 80 to 100 dealerships per month. And if you do the math on that, there's only 160 hours of working time in a month. And if somebody's working 80, that means they can only spend a max of 2 hours a month. And if you're on a phone call with them for an hour of that, that means you're spending all that money to get maybe an hour of work done every month, and that's not going to help. They're also required to take anybody that wants to sign up. So you end up with a situation where it's likely in big markets that multiple dealerships are paying the same vendor to do their SEO. So how does that work if you've got 7 or 8 dealerships in the same market that are paying the same vendor to all have the best visibility in the market? And they provide the exact same service to everyone because they're locked into those packages. which means you've got a Ford dealer in Dallas getting the exact same strategy and tactics as a Ford dealer in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming. That doesn't make sense. Those are two vastly different situations that need different strategies. So how is that program going to be good for your dealership? What you actually need is a customized plan of attack if you want to win with SEO. Now, you actually need local SEO if you want more visibility, because Google has multiple algorithms, and the local algorithm is different. It's more complex, and it includes additional signals that traditional SEO doesn't really do anything about. Now, most of the vendors within automotive, and actually a lot of vendors just in your local area, they only do traditional SEO. Now, if we look at the signals that matter between regular SEO and local SEO, there's some overlap there, but local SEO includes a lot of additional stuff that traditional doesn't include. So if we did a Venn diagram, it would look like this. If you're paying for SEO from one of the regular vendors, then the yellow circle represents all the effort that they're putting in, and only the bit in green is what's going to really benefit your dealership. Where if you're working with somebody that does local SEO, 100% of what they're going to do is going to benefit you. And you might wonder, well, geez, just because you're saying I need local SEO doesn't really mean I need it. So how do I know if I need it or not? But if you do a couple of simple searches, it's really obvious. Anything related to automotive and automotive dealerships is going to automatically be localized in the search results. So notice this one here. I just did a search for Ford dealer. I did not include any location whatsoever, and it automatically gives me a map pack showing me the Ford dealers that are close to my current location in the real world. That's how you know that Google assesses local intent with that type of a search. The best thing you can do is pay attention to an annual study called the Local Search Ranking Factor Study, where they take the top 35 to 40 people worldwide who are in this day in and day out, and they really test this all the time, and they're really tweaking things, and they have clients, and they know what they're doing, because nobody knows exactly what's in Google's algorithm. But if you take these top experts and you've got people that really know, if I tweak this thing here, it's going to give me more visibility. While they're all not going to agree on general strategy, they're all going to agree on tactics, or there's going to be a lot of overlap on tactics. So when you have this survey on positive factors, negative factors, competitive factors, et cetera, and then you aggregate those results, you get a pretty good understanding of what matters to the algorithm. And this study just came out for 2021 about a month ago. So at this point, we know what matters for next year. So it gives you a nice breakdown in two pie charts. The first is the signals that matter for showing up in a map pack or in Google Maps. And notice the Google My Business green section is really huge here, because that's what the location factors, that's where those location factors live. But then we also get another pie chart for the standard 10 blue links, but they're actually localized links of the regular organic listings. And notice here, Google My Business is a lot smaller because the location factor doesn't play in as much as content and links. So let's talk about those on-site signals. We know that customers are going to shop around before they buy a car or get service. Nobody gets online and buys from the first dealership they find. In fact, recent Google data shows that customers will visit a dealership website or multiple websites 27 times before they submit a lead. So that means that SEO isn't only about getting your dealership to show up well in searches. It's about making sure that your website stands out from your competitors. Your content on your site needs to give people a reason to visit your site and to come back to your site, because we know there are going to be multiple touch points before they call you or fill out a form or chat with you. So if you have the same generic content that all the other dealerships in town have, why would Google care? Why will Google show you higher? Why will customers care about you? And why would customers come back if you're the same generic dealership as everyone else? So your content needs to show customers why you're awesome. And your content needs to be actually about your dealership and about the local area. If you've got the same generic content as everyone else, there's nothing there that's really talking about why you're awesome and why people should buy from you and why you're a part of the community. And that's what's going to help you with Google and with customers. One way we like to test this is we'll take the homepage content or the About Us page content, and we change the name of the dealership and we change the city and nothing else. And then we think, could we take this content off of the homepage of this site, put it on the homepage of a dealership on the other side of the country? Would the content still work? If it would, that means that content's not really about that dealership or about the local area. So watch this video here. It kind of explains that in a bit more detail. if you'd like to learn more. Another way we like to test content is to read it out loud. Physically grab another person and read the content out loud. If you just think through it in your head, you don't hear those things that don't sound conversational. And Google wants to see conversational content on your site. It needs to sound like something that you would say face-to-face to a customer that just walked in the front door of the dealership. So when you read it out loud, those marketing blinders and those business owner blinders come off because you hear what it sounds like conversationally. Years ago, I spoke at a digital dealer in Vegas or driving sales, I don't remember which, and a dealer said, hey, we'd love to work with you. And it happened to be a Ford dealer in Dallas. And so we looked at their website and their homepage content sounded something like this. If you want to buy a Ford pickup in Dallas, come to our Ford pickup headquarters in downtown Dallas, where we sell more Ford pickups than any other dealership in Dallas. So when you're ready to buy your next Ford pickup, come to our Ford pickup headquarters and we'll give you the best deal on a Ford pickup of any dealership in Dallas that sells Ford pickups. And the people that wrote that content were thinking, oh my gosh, we are going to rank so well for Ford pickups in Dallas. But every human that went to the site was thinking, what the hell's wrong with these people? And that's also where you'll catch awkward things like those huge long lists of cities that you serve. If you had someone walk in the front door of the dealership and your sales guy greeted them and said, hey, welcome to the dealership. Did you know that we also serve customers in Dallas, Fort Worth, McKinney, Garland, Allen, the Colony, Frisco, and listed off 15 to 20 cities? You'd probably fire that sales guy. That customer is already at the dealership. They don't care where other customers come from. And it's the same with your website. If I'm on your website, I don't care where your customers come from. And Google's not going to show you in those cities just because they were mentioned in a comma separated list on your site. So don't do that stuff. I like to boil things down to simple concepts. And if we look at the simple concept, if you want to show up as a search result when somebody types in a particular keyword phrase or search query, you need a page of content on your site that's about that concept. And it's not just about having a singular page about that concept. That page needs to be the best answer to the question that the searcher is asking. Now, it doesn't have to be the best answer in the world. It doesn't even have to be the best answer in the United States. It just needs to be the best answer in your local market. And to be the best answer, it shouldn't just be the answer to that question. It should also answer all of the subsequent questions that that searcher might ask once they receive the answer to their initial question. And then once you've got this awesome content, you want to make sure you're optimizing it for Google so that Google really truly understands what that content is about. And geo optimization is key here because you want to make sure that you're clear that you're the best option in the local area. So I'm going to walk you through the page elements that you need to optimize in these situations, which means basically you need to do this for pretty much every page on your site except your VDPs, because that will be pretty much automated by the website provider. First, most important, most weighted element on the page is the title tag. It's what shows up in the tab above where you type in your URL. And typically it's going to populate the blue link when you show up as a search result in Google. You should never put your dealership name first. You're the only dealership named that. So anybody searching for your dealership name will always find you and you'll always rank number one. So instead, use your targeted keyword phrase and your city and state abbreviation. Second most important, most weighted element on the page is your H1 heading. It's the big, thick headline above your text. Can you have more than one H1 on the page? Sure, but why? You could use an H2 and H3 if you want to have additional subheadings. You should really only have one H1 on the page. It should be above your text. It should be as high on the page as possible. It should be a little bit more conversational than the title tag. It should never say something simple like just about us or welcome to our dealership. It should have the same targeted keyword phrase and city and state abbreviation. And then obviously, if your content is all about your dealership and all about the local area, you're already going to have that keyword phrase and city and state in the content, so you won't have to worry too much there. Then most platforms are going to allow you to set custom URLs for your pages. So you always want to include that keyword phrase and location phrase in those URLs. A great example here is the used cars page on any site. Typically out of the box, the used car page is going to be something like dealership.com/search used or dealership.com/search pre-owned, all one word. You'd be much better off with dealership.com/used-cars-dallas-tx. Image alt text is another great place to do some additional optimization. Years ago, Google couldn't tell what was in an image, so the alt text is a descriptor that goes in that image embed code to explain what's in the image. Now, machine learning can tell Google exactly what's in the image, but the alt text is still part of the algorithm. And it's something that a lot of dealers and a lot of marketers don't do anything with. So it's a great way to outpace your competitors and establish additional relevancy. And also, it's a compliance issue for Honda and probably soon for other dealerships, because there's an ADA rule for accessibility that images should all have alt text, because any blind people that are using screen reading browsers, those screen reading browsers can't interpret what's in the image. So they're going to read the alt text. And technically, you can get your dealership sued by not having alt text on images by a blind person. Even though they couldn't buy a car, they can still sue you for not having a compliant website. So you want to make sure you've got that anyway. And then it's also important to have that same keyword phrase and location phrase in the meta description. Now, this is behind the scenes code. It doesn't show up on the page, but it populates those couple of gray sentences underneath your blue link when you show up as a search result in Google. So having that there means you're more likely to get click-throughs to your website. You also want to make sure as you're doing your optimization that you're optimizing for the way that customers actually search. You don't want to use the jargon that we're all familiar with. Great example. All the dealerships watching this would know exactly what I meant if I said VDP or SRP, but customers don't know those terms. And the big problem here, and you watch this video, it'll walk you through it a bit more, is things like used cars and pre-owned vehicles. Most dealerships love to say that they sell pre-owned vehicles because it sounds nicer than saying used cars. The problem is people don't search for pre-owned vehicles. They search for used cars. So you'd be optimizing for the wrong phrase and missing out on the lion's share of the potential customer traffic. In fact, if I use Google Ads keyword preview tool, I can see the potential monthly search volume in the United States for those phrases. And pre-owned vehicles with a space, or pre-owned vehicles, or pre-owned all one word, altogether only have 2,900 searches on average every month in the United States, while used cars has over 800,000 searches a month. So it's really important to optimize for the right phrases. You also absolutely need a blog. It is no longer a luxury. It's something that every dealership should have. And in fact, pretty much every website platform except dealer.com gives you a blog. For some crazy reason, dealer.com still charges you extra for a blog, which is a little boneheaded since it's pretty much a necessity. And why is it important, you ask? Well, there's a huge difference between the type of content that goes in the main section of your site and the type of content that goes on your blog. The content on your site is more sales driven. It is content that is there to get customers to convert. The content on your blog is more informational. It's there to inform people and establish your dealership as informative, helpful, and relevant to the things that people might need in the local area. And in fact, if you make your blog a local destination by sharing informational posts about the local area that probably don't have a whole lot to do with your dealership, that's great. It gets you more exposure before people are looking to buy, because if everything on the site was only about selling cars and servicing cars, you're only going to show up as a search result when a potential customer is looking to buy a car or get their car serviced right now. Think of it like putting a billboard up. If you put that billboard up, a lot of people see that billboard that aren't looking to buy a car, but a month or two from now, or couple 3 months from now, they might get in a wreck and they total their car and they need a new car. And now they've seen that billboard every day, and you're in kind of top of mind for that customer, and they're aware of you where they may not have been aware of you before, which makes it more likely for you to get checked out by that potential customer. And then you have the chance to capture that business. It's the same thing with this local content. It gets your dealership website surfaced in a lot more search results and more local people exposed to your website. In fact, for the clients that we work with, 50% of the blog posts are about the dealership, and 50% are just about the local area. If you need ideas for what kind of content to do here, because you're just not sure what matters or how to do it, I have a video in my series, and then you can just read the transcript of the video if you don't want to watch the video, but the videos are fun. But it outlines 10 awesome ideas that you can use as a springboard to write your own localized content. Now, before you go try to show up in nearby cities, this is something that happens with dealers a lot, where they say, hey, I'm in this town, but I want to show up in this nearby town, or I'm in the suburbs and I want to show up in the main metro. You've got to own your own backyard. And what that means, if your SEO foundation isn't solid enough that you're dominating local search results in the town where you actually are located, you're not going to show up in the other cities. So own your backyard first. Dominate your own town where you're located before you try to expand. And now let's talk about inbound links, links pointed from other sites to your dealership site. And they're one of the most weighted ranking factors. And it used to be a numbers game. It used to be years ago, whoever had the most links pointed to them was typically going to rank higher. But now it's more about the relevancy of the links. Now, the number is still important, obviously, but you want links that have a reason to link to you. Those sites should have a reason to link to you, or they should be local sites. That's still a reason. That relevancy factor is really key for the quality of those links and whether they're going to matter for SEO or not. When you're doing research and using tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs or Moz to check out your links, whether you're doing it yourself or you're holding your vendor accountable, don't look at the total number of links pointed to your site. Look at the number of unique sites pointing links to you. Because once you get a link from a site, there's a lot less value to get more links from that site. So I'd much rather have one link from 50 different sites than 100 links from only 10 sites. Most SEO providers and most dealerships don't do anything with link building because it is very difficult and time consuming. Now, keep in mind, crappy directory links don't count. If you can go fill out a form on a site and get a link, Google's not going to value that link. And realistically, because we're talking about Google's local algorithm, you want local links. You want links from other local businesses. But it's really hard work and time consuming, even still on the local side. So if you're doing your own SEO, you really need a dedicated staff member. This can't be your internet manager or your marketing person that also has to do some SEO, and then they're going to do a little bit of link building. You need an SEO full-time employee to do this. Otherwise, you're probably going to need to work with an SEO provider. The easiest way to get links is to do real world old school marketing. All the things that you used to do before we had the internet to get local exposure are all the things you should do now because it still gives you local exposure and they're awesome opportunities to get links. So if you're involved in the local community, it's super easy to earn those powerful links. If you want to learn more about links, because I'm trying to squeeze in stuff today, I did a presentation at a conference in Sydney, Australia a while ago, and it's got some really in-depth, awesome information and tactics to use to get some awesome local links. But I want to move on and talk a little bit about customer reviews. Obviously, reviews are important because potential customers are going to look at those reviews before they buy, but they're also weighted in Google's algorithm. You need to have a really proactive, strong review process. You need to ask every customer for a review and make it easy for that customer to leave a review. Please watch this video. It outlines it. A lot of dealerships really miss the boat on this one. A really important concept too is if a customer leaves certain keywords in that written review, it's going to help you show up better in searches for those particular keywords. And you can't really tell customers what to write in those reviews because it's against the rules with Google, but you can Jedi mind trick them into including the right phrases by asking the right questions. So one of the things we always suggest for making it easy to leave reviews is to have a page on your site like dealership.com/reviews with a simple thank you message. It says, thanks for doing business. Let us know how we did today. Leave a review on one of the following sites, and then you give them options. But if you add a little bit of info to that page and say, hey, if you're not sure what to write, the best reviews offer specific details and helpful tips. Here's some questions to think about when you're writing your review. And then ask things like, did you buy a new car or a used car? Because then subliminally, they're thinking about that when they write the review, and they'll say, hey, I bought a used F-150 from this dealership or a used car. And then you've got those keyword phrases in there without specifically telling them to do so. I want to finish up really quickly with Google My Business. Now, it just happened last week that Google rebranded this. So now it's called Google Business Profiles, but we're still going to call it Google My Business for the purposes of this because that's what's in this presentation that I did a few weeks ago in Vegas. Your Google My Business listing is your dealership's new homepage. People don't have to go to your site to get your phone number or to get your address or to see photos or to read reviews anymore. That all happens on Google. So you need to make a great first impression. Make sure you fill out everything that you can fill out. And you've got to add UTM tracking to your website link because analytics attribution is broken. A lot of the traffic that clicks on your Google My Business link on mobile devices gets attributed as direct traffic in Google Analytics. So watch the video, it explains what to do, but basically you want to add this character string to the end of your URL, which will force analytics to attribute those clicks as organic search traffic with a source of GMB listing. A lot of dealers are going to put Google as the source, organic as the medium, and then use a campaign variable to say Google My Business. It's better not to put Google as the source because then you have to do additional things in analytics to separate that traffic. It's better if you put something like GMB listing, or if you haven't done this yet and you're just now setting it up, you probably want to call it GBP because that's the new acronym. But that way, as soon as you go into the source medium report in analytics, you can separate what comes from the regular organic links in Google and what comes from the map pack or your Google My Business listing. You want to make sure you're adding the UTM tracking to the additional links, like if you have an appointments link or anything else, You want to have the UTM tracking there as well. You want to make sure you've got a local phone number listed. That is incredibly key. And it's okay to use a tracking number. And it's actually best practice. You want to get credit for all those calls from Google My Business or Google Business Profile. But watch the video. It outlines how to do it. And also make sure it's a local area code tracking number. The categories that you select have massive influence on how you show up in local search results. And be strategic with which category you choose as your first category. Your primary category carries more weight and will help you get more visibility there. If you're not sure which categories you should be selecting, I've got a video and a blog post here that outlines the specific categories that you should have on each of your Google listings, because you should have separate listings for parts department and service department that are nested as departments on the primary listing. This video here walks you through how to do that. And everybody's heard of the rumors and the talk about Google My Business now displaying the inventory that you've got available. It was just showing up on mobile, but now it shows up on desktop. It's really exciting because it shows in your profile and it lists the inventory, and they can click through and see a VDP that's hosted on Google. So it's a really cool thing. You should all be doing it. You should also be using Google Posts because they're basically free advertising. I did an entire Whiteboard Friday video for an SEO tool company called Moz. It's 15 minutes of in-depth information about how to use posts. So please watch it. You should also be paying attention to the questions and answers section. It allows anyone to ask your dealership a question and anyone can answer that question for you, which is terrifying. Customers expect immediate answers because they actually think it's a chat widget or instant messaging widget, but it's really community discussion. Now, you're able to send your own questions in, ask yourself your own common questions, and then answer those questions. It's like setting up a pre-site FAQ experience. And the reason that's important is because if someone comes in to ask a question, and a similar question has been asked and answered in the past, or if a review includes something that could be an answer to that question, Google will auto-complete that question as they're typing it in and automatically provide an answer before they've even finished typing that question in. Now, I spoke at a 20 group about a month ago, and I've created a scoring matrix that I use to score the dealers on the status of their optimization. There's a possible 100 points in the scoring matrix, and scores at the 20 group ranged anywhere from less than 1 point to a 43.8. And then I've also since then scored dealers that were interested in being scored from both Driving Sales Executive Summit and Digital Dealer. And now we're seeing an average of a little bit over a 45. If you'd like me to score your dealership, shoot me an email. I would be happy to do that for you for anybody that's watching this video today. Now, I know that was a lot. Hopefully nobody's brain exploded because of the fire hose of information. And for those of you that have not seen Scanners, his brain literally does explode. Because the truth is out there about how to get your dealership to show up higher in local search results. And I have now given you the key to understand how to get better visibility so you can break out of your shells and do better marketing for your dealerships so that your dealership will be able to live long and prosper. Thanks so much for watching the presentation. There's my email address if you'd like to shoot me an email to get scored, or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions. And if you'd like the slides, I'll send them to you as well, because there's, as always, a cool list of all the movies at the end by order of release date. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for sticking around to watch the whole thing. That's definitely all the time we've got for today. So you know what that means. Put your hand on the screen right here. We totally just high-fived because you learned something awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of Local Search Tuesdays.